Aloha. Welcome to Java. Thank you for joining me on this very busy Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. There's a lot going on that have happened between yesterday and today, so let's get right into it. Starting with the MMRI, our favorite risk indicator, has pulled back a bit, currently sitting at 275.8. So, yesterday, what happened in the market got a bit volatile and fell off towards the end, basically. So, all of the stocks are down. We've got the volatility index in the green. Oil is beginning to recover slightly at the moment. Quite a few things going on in that sector. And we've got also futures down, showing a bit of a continuation, at least for the open. Very weak market. We'll be watching the 10-year yield and the relative dollar strength, because if those continue in strength, they could put further pressure on the markets. And as we've been talking about, they've been heading into these resistance levels. And now it's beginning to show the resistance is very real. And I'll bring that up again later as well. So, Wednesday watch, we've got the Fed minutes coming out. And then after market close today, we're getting NVIDIA's earnings. So, there's large amount of anticipation for that. The run up lately for that stock has been absolutely magnificent. And the amount of money that is now in that, not just in the stock itself, but more so in the derivatives of the options, could create a huge difference in what happens today. So we will be watching the FOMC meeting minutes come out 2 o'clock. And then I've also got the calendar up for tomorrow, because we're getting jobless claims prior to market open. And then we're going to have some other reports coming out. We'll go over that in the morning. This is the earnings for today. Basically, in the spotlight, we are looking, as I said, at NVIDIA. We've also got Rivian and a couple of others. So going into the economy and these sectors that are coming out. So this is showing we've got a slight rise in oil at this moment. A lot of that tied to what is going on in the Middle East, because the ship that they sank the other day, it's taking on water. I don't know if it's technically completely sunk yet, but they did abandon ship. So that kind of sparked some fears with that sector. So we've got new home construction. They reported yesterday is plummeted to a 5-month low. That's not unexpected. We've been talking about mortgage rates and the slowdown in that sector. So that is the major component of what they're calling sticky inflation. That is beginning to show cracks and come down with the economy. So the real problem here that everyone is bringing up finally, now that it's pretty much too late, is the United States government debt has exceeded 120% of their gross domestic product. This is not sustainable. So they're talking about former IMF economists very worried about the fiscal crisis. You don't have to be an economist to do that kind of math, in my opinion. At any rate, that's an issue we're going to have to face soon. And we've got Walmart talking about inflation stickier than expected in the latest quarter. Well, that's because they keep putting out all of these programs and inflating the debt. So that's having its effect as far as commercial real estate. Came out HSBC's major bank with large ties with Chinese and US commercial real estate. So they're looking to limit their losses and basically looking at doing as much asset sell off as they can in a slow and controlled manner. So if that sounds familiar, basically it means we've got a lot of properties that are about to be dumped. So we had China's two main stock exchanges froze accounts of a major quant hedge fund for 3 days because they just began dumping all of their assets onto their markets, and it brought their stocks down to the red. So they put them in a halt. So as I was saying before, we don't have a true free market because they are still managing it. So I haven't spoken about this in a while, but basically the very basis structurally of a CBDC for the United States as well as globally is what they're calling the FedNow service. It's their payment system. It's been growing, and this is just kind of an update that they're now over 500 plus participants. They are muscling other banks to get into this system to where they won't be able to basically clear their payments unless they're on the system. So gaining strength there. And I put this here because this is news. If you haven't heard of it before, it's called Stellar. So you could talk about it as far as the cryptocurrency space, but really what Stellar is a system that enables they've begun their smart contracts, which will enable peer-to-peer trading, meaning that you can actually barter outside of any exchanges. And while these systems exist now, in my opinion, they need to basically get a little more sophisticated. They are building towards these so that everyday people will feel more comfortable using them. So further economic news also had Home Depot, and we always watched Home Depot and Walmart basically for the retail and the do-it-yourself sector. They said they had strong fourth quarter earnings, but they're talking about weak expectations for this coming year. So their stock dropped on that news, even though their earnings were good. We've also got, if you haven't heard yet, it's huge news. Amazon is going to be added to the Dow, so replacing Walgreens because they've surpassed them in the cap. So kind of this is big news, but it really shouldn't be. And it shouldn't focus on where one company is anyway, because they are already included in the stock indices as what they're calling the Magnificent Seven. So we're going to jump across to what is going behind some of this, in particular oil. This also affects inflation because it is affecting the trade routes. So we had Iran with the gas pipeline explosion. They're blaming it on Israel. So more of this war that's going to be coming into play. And they're talking about natural gas, their pipelines basically overtaking a lot of the commodities sector. And there are several people that don't like that and they're going to be losing out from it. So apparently they're accusing them of sabotage. So we had several Israeli missiles have hit the districts in Syria's capital. So that's not helping things. They're still doing campaigning, and the United States is still putting money behind it. So with this campaign and driving a good portion of this inflation that they can no longer sustain the debt payments on, is the United States administration wants people to know that most of the money that they're seeking for this huge multi-billion-dollar package to go to Ukraine, that it would be spent in the United States. So trying to wrap this in pretty paper so that it is accepted. And basically what they're saying is that they'll be spending this money on construction and local companies in the United States. So really, this is the other side of where it's actually going. General Dynamics, like Lockheed Martin, these are all, and Raytheon Technologies, they all manufacture weaponry. They've got a $1.3 billion contract to supply armored vehicles now to the Austrian armed forces. If you haven't heard of this one, this is on top of all of the bombs. They're talking about creating new factory here that would make missiles, munitions, and other gear. So $40 billion they're talking about. That would be so great because it's for our factories. Then when we produce these missiles and weapons and send them over there to blow up cities and distract what's really going on, that is good for our economy. It will add to our GDP. So how are we going to tell the true numbers of what the United States is producing? Because these bombs, once they go over there, we don't really benefit from these, obviously. So as much as they're trying to say this is bringing jobs, it's not a positive for what we're getting in the bottom line of things. So we'll have to watch the GDP versus trade balances, which is what we would actually get in return for anything that is produced from the United States. So we'll keep that online. So going along with this, if we watch our trade, because we've got several wars going on, and commodities are going to come into play. So we've got Maduro saying that Venezuela is going to join BRICS, quote unquote, soon, but he is not a friend to what has been going on with the United States as well. And they've just had large bouts of hyperinflation, and a lot of this has been a manipulation through the oil suppression of prices, similar to what the United States is trying to do to Russia right now, although without success. So, along with South America, we've also got Iran, Pakistan are creating heavier trade agreements, and they're trading to them locally, which includes United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Armenia, uh, several countries listed here, including Russia, Turkey, and Saudi. So they're building their trade and they're building their true GDP. So in the long run, that's going to make them stronger. So I've got one last story on this that's affecting the economy, are regarding the migrants, illegal immigrants, really. So they're talking about immigrants, but these are illegal immigrants. There's a huge difference. Convincing residents now to come pick them up, house them, and find jobs for them. So that's their solution after they have already allowed this issue to occur. So a couple of interesting stories. Probably can't talk about this too much. Talking about the latest things that scientists are trying to grow are lab-grown testicles with the hope of easing infertility. I don't know exactly what the purpose of that is because there's multiple other things. However, that's the latest. And the big news, which I had a very difficult time finding, they are suppressing this in a major way in mainstream media. But truckers are now doing a protest in New York, in the United States. And it's after a verdict to make Donald Trump pay a certain amount of money. They had a fine. It's a huge court story. But the truckers have stopped providing, they're boycotting New York, and they're talking about how this has basically led to lack of supply for the shelves. This is not just groceries, this is everything else, raising prices, and they have to pay 30% more to get their shipping. So they're basically cutting them off, and we're only in day 2 of this. So I'll keep you up to date on this because that is huge for the city of New York, and I think they're going to move pretty quickly. So remember, moving into the markets, the resistance is real. So with that, I wish you a great trading day, wonderful day in general. Thank you for being with me again. Until I see you again, stay free.